Hello, and today we're going to be looking at a scenario where the Triangle Alliance from Adis Post-Wixo wins World War II in Adis Post-Wixo. Let's get into it. If you watch Adis Pro, you'll know and maybe recognize this map. This map took forever for me to draw. Yeah? So let's get into it. We are going to be starting with the Russian invasion of Poland. Just like the actual scenario, Russia is going to be invading Poland right after they unite. So the Russian forces will start by going into Poland and quickly and swiftly trying to knock them out of existence. But the Polish are actually going to be pulling off a better fight than they did in the actual scenario, and they are going to be pushing into some Estonian areas. Before the Russians, after a while, will be eventually pushing them all the way back, and eventually, will reach their capital and force them to surrender. Let's look at a peace treaty. And the peace treaty of this is full annexation of Poland by Russia. And this is what Europe looks like now. This to that. How about those Russian POWs? If you know anything about World War II, POWs, or prisoners of war from Poland, were sent through the Farmers' Union to the old empire, and a Greek naval ship blew them up, which ultimately sparked World War II and Adis Post-Wixo. But this time, when the POWs enter the Farmers' Union, the Farmers' Union is going to keep them for a few days, which, I'm not sure how the Greeks got here, because, yeah. But they leave, and they don't have any military ships. And then they decide to bring it to the old empire, and they go through the Crimean route as a storm hits. And, they go around the storm, which was here, and eventually reach the old empire, avoiding Greece. And those POWs aren't exploded. Yeah. The prisoner of warships, yeah. This is going to ultimately, stop World War II from happening. And you may be wondering, that doesn't make sense. There has to be a World War II in this scenario. Well, it's gonna happen eventually. So, these few years, the world is still pretty peaceful, just like it was in real Wixo. And during that time, the Farmers' Union and the Iberians will be joining the Square Alliance. And this will make the world look like this. Yeah. And after about 2 decades, something big will happen in Iberia. A Dark Cyan team ship from this was the journey of this ship. It was going from the Dark Cyan team down into Africa, across its coast to collect resources, then to the Americas, and then now it's going back. It's basically collecting resources to, give to the Dark Cyan team. And during its adventures, it makes a break on this island. But then something happens. A warplane comes in and shoots down the ship in the middle of the ocean, and the ship wanders off and lands here on the Iberian coast. The Dark Cyan team doesn't know about this, and not until a few days later, when a small orange rebellion thing here pops up in the southern Iberian area, and Iberia is going to be sending its troops down into here to defeat it. But it's also kind of unfortunate at the same time, because when these Iberian troops are coming down to defeat the rebellion, the Dark Cyan troops are coming here, and they eventually meet up at around this space. And then the Iberian troops will be attacking Dark Cyan team troops. And the Iberians will chase the Dark Cyan team troops into the Dark Cyan team until eventually all of them die. Yeah, and one survives, and he goes to tell the capital. And that also kind of means that the Iberians invaded the Dark Cyan team. And, when the Dark Cyan team hears this, he is going to go to the capital of Iberia. And it's going to go like, whoa, what did you just do with our troops and resources? And the Iberians are like, what happened? You talking about what happened? And then footage is shown from the leader, and The Iberians are going to go to the old empire in Russia, and they're going to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Is the Dark Scion team trying to attack you? And the Iberians are like, yes. But and the Dark Scion team is going to go to this, and it's going to be like, whoa, 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 they attacked us. And now there's a huge mess in this capital region here. And eventually, they then go home to make plans. The Dark Scion team loses their troops. And, this is going to cause the Triangle Alliance to declare war on the Square Alliance. And, the fighting starts in Iberia, as World War II has officially begun in this alternate scenario. As the Dark Scion team's troops will start by entering into the Iberian area. As Iberian troops are doing very well in this area, as they will be prepared for this, feeling like that this war was going to happen. But over in this northern area here, France will be going in and invading this country, and so will the Catalonians, as they will be doing much damage to Iberia. When we go over to Dalmatia/Yugoslavia, and they will be invading into the Farmers Union, and their operation will go successful as they start the huge invasion thing. Yeah, and it will look like this. The Greeks will also start their invasion of the Farmers Union as well, and also will be taking Crete from the old empire. And also this small island here, and will start a small invasion of this Turkish area in the old empire. Yeah. Oh wait! Did I get the... Okay, yeah, you're on the Square Alliance. Forgot about you. Just ignore that. He joins as well in the Square Alliance. Yeah. When we look over in Iberia, Iberia is fighting well, as they will be able to push France in Catalonia back, because they feel like they're more threatening than the Dark Scion team currently. But that comes with the cost of the Dark Scion team pushing back here. Or I can call it Andalusia. Either one. I'll probably just say Dark Scion team. As the Dark Scion team / Andalusia will be pushing back. Time to go all the way to Iberia's colony. Well, Iberia's colony, with help from the old empire, is going to be fighting the Catalonian colony, as the old empire will make its landings on the Red Sea coast of this colony here, and will be working on, as they basically split the Catalonian colony, as Catalonian are out of Africa, and well, this was their only colony, so they don't have a colony anymore, as you can see. Yeah. In the old empire will start invasion of Egypt. As the old empire will send some of the troops into the Egyptian area, and will be starting some pretty big fighting, as they will be, defeating the Egyptian areas and taking these small areas. And at this point, the Suez Canal has been built, so that's pretty good for them. And also, they push back down here. And this might allow the Square Lines to block any aid to the Red Sea to other colonies, even though you could just go around, or just to Oceania. Who knows what could happen? Yeah, but that's what happens. When we go back to Iberia, the Iberians are still pushing back in the France area, as they would be pushing up into mainland France, and start their push in Catalonia, and continue it. Yeah. As the Scion team will be pushing into this area, as they're really threatening the Iberians and their existence. So they're going to pull troops out of France, because that's what they were mainly focusing on, and same thing with Catalonia. And well, they will be using those to help push back the Dark Scion team. And this is what the front in Iberia looks like. Farmers Union will actually be doing very well, as their full armies, with help from Russia. Russia doesn't have much to do, as they are just mainly focusing on Europe, sending a majority of their troops into the Farmers Union to push back against Greece and Yugoslavia, as they will be pushing in and start the defeat of Yugoslavia. And then the new country will be joining the war. The Purple Team, they want old lands back, and the Purple Team will be pushing back the Yugoslavians, Dalmatians. And that can do either. Let me remove this. And they will both together be pushing the Dalmatians back and look like this. And the Romans will also be doing pretty well against Greece. But the Greeks are still doing pretty well on the Farmers' Union front. And the Greeks' invasion of the old empire is going not so well, as they lose it, and they lose Istanbul. The old empire will be pushing into the Thracian area, and will be starting an invasion of this island and taking it. Even though, oh wait, that's not an island. As the Greeks will actually be pushing back the Romans with the help of the Italian Union, of course. And this is what the front line looks like so far. Time to go back to Iberia, or just Africa, as the old empire will be continuing their colonial expansions, and these areas will be fully taken over, the whole Red Sea area, and, well, yeah, the French colony is not doing so well, as the old Imperians will be taking over the whole Nile area, and so will the Iberians, as they will be taking the southern parts of it. And eventually, well, yeah, the front line looks like this. And the old empire starts pushing into the Italian Union colony, as they will be pushing in here and taking over all of this area. Yeah. And this is what the front line looks like. Time to go back to Iberia, as France will be sending their full force over to Iberia, realizing that their colony is gone. They're just leaving it. And with troops from there not fighting the old empire anymore, they will be able to destroy Iberia with the help of Catalonia, as their colony is gone now. They can fully focus on Iberia. But the Dark Sign team, being one of the strongest countries in the world, is going to go ahead and take the capital of Iberia, forcing Iberia to surrender. In this would kind of see something as the old empire is going to be taking occupation of the Iberian country's colony, as who else is going to control it? You don't want your enemies to control it, because, well, that's pretty big territory, and that could really threaten your homeland, if they wanted to. Time to go back to Greece. The Farmers' Union will be fully pushing back against the Greeks, and the Greeks are being defeated really badly, so the Romans will also fully push back. And the old Imperians will continue their invasion, and eventually take over the whole peninsula, and threatening the capital, which is right there. And will the same thing with the Romans, as they will continue to push in through here. And the old Imperians will also be pushing in through here, threatening the capital from two sides, not just one. And eventually the capital of Greece will be taken, and Greece is forced to surrender. And well, it looks like it's not going so good for them, as the Romans will continue to push into the Dalmatians, and will be able to take over this area, and so will the Farmers' Union. As the Farmers' Union will be taking this area, and the Romans can start fighting the Italian Union. And then the Italian Union pushes back a tiny bit. There. But then, it's not going very well for the Triangle Alliance. You can see France and Catalonia in colonies have basically fell. Time to look at an update of that, as the old Imperians will be pushing greatly into this area and will be pushing back. Yeah. But then, if we go away from Europe over to another area, here, something is happening. Two countries are going to be joining this war. The Green Team and Puss India, sus the Lime Team, have had history together. Puss India originally broke away from the Green Team, so basically these two are basically Green Team fellows. And one very, very common enemy that they have, not India, that's just Puss India's empire enemy, but if you know who I'm talking about, and I think you may know if you watch this pro, the old empire, the Green Team and the Lime Team are going to be joining this war on the side of the Triangle Alliance. And this is going to cause mayhem, as Green Team troops filled with pride to take back some of their old lands. They want to reach here and here, as the green team will be pushing into where the puppet stage of the green team after World War III is, or was, which and the Puss Indians will start pushing into Persian area, and will be helping the green team out, pushing the old empire back. And this is something for the old empire, as the old empire will be being pushed back in the Italian Union area, as they are forced to make troops leave the African colonies to go deal with you two. And we'll talk about you in a little, India, because the African Union has something going on. The old empire is going to propose to the African Union, hey, if you join this alliance, you will help with freeing Africa and the world. If you join this war, it will be for Africa, for freedom of your continent. And basically, they were asking the old African Union to join in order to free Africa. And they will say yes. And the Dark Sign team is like, whoa. Ugh. As the African Union will be starting an invasion of the Dark Sign team, as they will start the invasion, taking over Gibraltar. Then they will start the push over here, as they will be taking over a pretty big part of North Africa, and it looks pretty bad for the Triangle Alliance. Your African colonies are being attacked by two of the strongest countries in the world. Maybe we'll talk about you later, Russia. You're also pretty strong, but African Union is, the strongest country that is native to Africa. Oh, wait, there's only 3 countries that are native to Africa here. Everything else is colonized. As the African Union will be basically left to do all this. And they will they will take Corsica and start the invasion of the Italian Union. And this is bad for the Triangle Alliance. You can see the colonies are gone, and they're losing as all the main areas are here. Who knows what could happen next? They're kind of focusing on these. Oh wait, time to talk about you now. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's a lot of whoas. The Post Indians get invaded by India, as India wants to finish off their not-so-good Great Empire, and, the old empire starts to push back, with them taking all their troops out of this area, and kind of making the old empire all their offensive troops. They still have defensive troops here. The offensive troops are over here pushing back the green team, as the green team is fully pushed back, and the old empire is pushing back Post India, as the green team will start losing. And this looks pretty bad for the Lime team, until something happens. A Lime team rebellion over in the East Indian area. As this area of East India will be rebelling away from from India, and right after that, more southern areas of India start rebelling. And this, I'm pretty sure the capital is like here, and that's really threatening for them. Yeah, if I can get the color, they will be pushing back the Lime Team rebellions here. And this will give hope to the Lime Team, as who knows if they might be being funded or what I was saying? Oh yeah, now India's losing badly, as the rebellions for the Lime Team, are pushing back in the eastern parts of India, while the Lime Team itself is pushing back in western parts of India. And they eventually will be able to take over huge parts of India, as all of this Indian area is taken. And eventually, the capital of India is taken, and the Lime Team has India back. This is the old empire. What does it have to say about this? And the old empire says, "What? We haven't seen you in a while. Why are you back? You're basically back. You just need Southeast Asia and Chile and here and also you you basically have Post-India. Oh, and Tanzania. And you basically have the Post-Indian Empire back. And this is something. The old empire is going to be sending full force over into Post-India just to try to knock them out of the war. And they will be doing mass damage to the country, as they will be greatly pushing back over here, and they've already taken the capital area, but they have faith with India, which is their main area. And the green team will start pushing back against the old empire. But then, it seems like starting for some countries, especially with the Romans pushing back in the Italian Union and threatening one of the capitals. Russia. It's time to talk about that. Russia has just found something that could change the tide of this war. They find bombs. Not just any bombs, nuclear bombs on the Russian border. Yes. Russia just found nuclear bombs on its allies' border. And Russia is going to go to the old empire like, what are those nuclear bombs on your border with me? And the old empire is like, what? And Russia's like, no, tell me. I know you're lying. And the old empire's like, whoa. Those are mine, but they're going towards the brown team. Then the old empire, no, Russia's going to say, then why wouldn't you put them in me, the farmers union? That could make more sense going to the brown team. And then just it's very unfortunate times. Documents get leaked, as an anonymous user will be sending over documents to Russia that basically the nuclear bombs are there, aimed at Russia in order to take them down. And Russia is like, what? And the old empire is like, we're once trying to invade you. And Russia says they don't care, and Russia leaves the Square Alliance. And well, Russia starts their invasion of the old empire, because the old empire had no expectations of this happening. They never saw this coming, as Russia will be greatly pushing back, stealing these nuclear bomb things for their own, and will be pushing back greatly as they take over not all this area, but they will be taking over all of this area though, which is crazy. And they start their invasion of the Farmers Union as well, as they feel like the Farmers Union is behind this as well, as they also find bombs on the border of the Farmers Union. And well, this is crazy, as the Farmers Union capital is taken. If I can get rid of this later. The Farmers Union capital is taken, and the Farmers Union is split in two. And well, this gives hope for the Triangle Alliance. But they've still got to focus with Russia. Russia's kind of on their side now. But this will cause the Green Team to push back against the old empire and take this area. And most importantly, the Lime Team will start pushing back, retaking, I'm pretty sure, the old capital area, which I'm pretty sure, if I can get a color I can see, yeah, right there, there, that black dot. Pretty sure that's where the capital was. And then something else happens. You know, the country, one of the strongest in the world, the country that has been around, the one that discovered Americas, formed in episode 3, and has their big empire, won World War One, and is might win World War Two. And if you don't know by now, the Dutch. The Dutch will declare war on the Farmers Union. And then a day after that, the Dutch declare war on Russia, as Dutch troops will start rapid fire going into Poland, as they will destroy the Russian armies that were non-existent. That is, in Norway, being in the background the entire time, if I can. There. And the Norwegians will be greatly pushing back against the Dutch, as the Dutch kind of ignore them. But they still will be keeping this front line here, and, well, time to talk about you, Iceland. As Iceland is going to be taken by this. Yeah, and this is something. As Norway will be attempting in the background to take as much of the Dutch colonies as possible, as they take Iceland in this territory. Yeah, the Dutch have just got involved, and the Triangle Alliance has hope, as the Italian Union will be retaking islands in the African Union, as the African Union gets orders from the old empire to help them. And, well, the Italian Union invades Sicily and takes it. And the African Union is like, what? We do not like this. And the Dark Side team is pushing back, as they start to take more and more of African colonies back from them, because they would be, with help from the Italian Union, retaking all of the colonies. And the African Union is gone. African Union troops have been forced to go to the old empire, and some from Russia, as the African Union was kind of the main focus of the Dark Side team, as they will be being pushed back by, as the Dark Side team focuses on Morocco, and the Italian Union focuses on Tunisia. And, well, Italian Union makes landings over here and surrounds the Tunisian area, which is the main capital region. As more and more troops will be swarming into the Union, and will be taking over a bunch of territory, as the main capital in Tunisia is taken. And the Dark Side team will eventually, with help from the Italian Union, take the final capital of the African Union. The African Union is gone. The African Union is out of the war. And this gives the Triangle Alliance more hope. Who knows what could happen? Yeah. And time to talk about colonies. As colonies are rebelling. People may or may not be being funded by some country called the Old Empire. Are being funded. Funding is happening as rebellions start to pop up in South American and Andalusian colonies. As this is kind of big. Well, yeah, as all this South American area will be rebelling from the Dark Side team, but the Dark Side team doesn't bother to worry. Yeah, they don't really worry at all, because they're kind of focused with occupying a bunch of territory here and sending troops to the Old Empire. Time to talk about Russia, as Russia will be fully annexing this part of the Farmers Union, and the Farmers Union isn't split in two anymore, as the Dutch will also be splitting the Farmers Union alongside the Russians, as the Russians will be taking all, if I can, they're taking all of this territory, and the Italian Union starts to push back, as the Italian Union, oh wait, I forgot to add the triangle shape there, as the Italian Union will be pushing back against the Romans, as the Italian Union is kind of being a pretty big player now, as they will be swarming their armies into Rome. And since Rome is pretty small, as of now, the Italian Union will be pushing back and fully defeating the Romans. Fully defeating the Romans. There. And they will start pushing into the old Imperial Greek occupied territory. There. And the old empire is being beat by Russia, whereas the old empire has lost all the Caucasian area. But they will still be holding out here. And when we look at the Dutch are still pushing into the Russians, as they will be taking all this area here and start pushing in. And for Norway, they take this island here and will be starting their invasion of Norway as they recapture their territory, and they have to go out of the way to send some troops, but it's not of no use as Norway is kind of forced to surrender as the Dutch will be occupying all of the territory, including these islands which appear. And, well, yeah, that happens. Yeah, and the Dutch kind of rule half of Europe. Time to talk about these rebellions again, because they are spreading to Africa as well, as this southern African colony here will be rebelling away from these Africans, no, from the Dutch, as they will be taking over all of this territory here. And, well, Madagascar is also taken. Yeah. So Southern Africa and South America have had a lot of rebellions, as all this area is just being pushed into by these rebellions. And the rebellions, people, the countries that control them, don't care. They need these. But, well, another country is joining in this war, and China joins in this war to take over these oceanic colonies, as the Chinese will be greatly pushing in and fully taking over the Dutch oceanic colony and the Andalusian dark science team oceanic colony. Yeah, as all of this area here is taken by the Chinese, and the Chinese don't get much backlash, as this is kind of common. Colonialism is a pretty common thing in this world. Time to talk about the old empire, as the Southern Post Indians will be taking over and pushing back the old empire even more, and the Russians will be continuing to push back. Before the brown team will continue to push back and take over these areas, and will be starting to push into these Estonian areas. And the Russians will just be occupying this area, but the Italian Union will be taking all this area and start to push into the old empire. The old empire is losing. Yeah, I'm talking about Africa, because the Italian Union will be sending their troops back into the occupied French territories, colonies, as they would be taking the Egyptian area and the Sinai Peninsula. And, well, the old Imperians send all of their troops out of this area in order to go ahead and focus on the old empire. There's these rebellions at the same time. These rebellions will be continuing to push back, feeling like somehow the rulers are going to lose. And, well, eventually, after just a long while longer, these rebellions will spread throughout all of these territories here, and eventually, if I can color them all in eventually because there's so many, eventually all of these areas will be rebelling away from their masters. Yeah. And all the Americas are rebelled, just Africa and Europe is left. Yeah. As the rebellions will be spreading to these territories. Yeah. And, well, the old empire is losing, and so is Russia. And Finland, seeing the old empire, no, Russia, lose, is going to get in on this war and start invading Russia. The Finnish were not. People of Finland are surprised, and Russia is definitely surprised. They did not expect Finland, out of all countries, to join in on this war. They would have expected, well, countries like the Pink Team to join in. Oh, wait. Now that I've mentioned that, the Pink Team joins in on this war to get and take land from Russia. And so this Cyan country here. And soon after, this country, as they all at the same time will be invading Russia. As they just send the normal average civilians into Russia in order to take over this territory. And the Dutch will be taking over all the occupied territory, taking the capital, and forcing, well, the Russians to surrender. Whoa, that's a weird map. That look a bit. Whoa, that's all the occupied territories. That looks a little weird. Yeah, let's ignore that. As the green team will be continuing their push into the old empire, and so the Post Indians. And rebellions will spread to the old empire as well, as southern areas will be breaking away from the old empire, as the blue team areas will be breaking away, and soon the Arabian Peninsula will break away as well. And then the Italian Union will continue their invasion of the old empire, and will be taking all this area. As the Italian Union will be greatly pushing in, and, well, will be destroying the old empire, as these southern rebellions can't do much, as the Post Indians will go ahead and take the capital of the old empire, and, well, force the old empire to surrender. But then the old empire, yeah. And, well, that's the end. You still have to deal with colonies. And they're proposing to the rebellions. And, the European powers will propose to the rebellions that if you join us, then we will rule the world together. And, the rebellions abide, as all of these areas will be going into occupation with the Dutch. Because, well, majority of these areas are Dutch. Yeah. So the rebellions basically join them. And then, well, the Chinese are getting invaded. Okay. And China is going to sort out a peace treaty with these countries that they are allowed to live, but they will be losing the oceanic colonies, but they won't be losing the Philippines, their main Chinese area, Taiwan, etc. There. And that is going to do it for, wait, before I say that, do you want the series to continue? Tell me down in the comments if you want a part 2. Hope you enjoyed today's video. See you in the next video or episode of this if you want a part 2. Tell me in the comments once again. See you later and bye!